Every morning, we wake up with a choice. The world doesn't hand us a blueprint for the day, we build it. Not with grand gestures or perfect plans, but with small moments. Just 5 minutes. That's all it takes to begin shaping your future. Let me ask you something. What if, instead of rushing into the day, you gave yourself just 5 minutes to decide who you're going to be today? 5 minutes to focus not on what you have to do, but on what truly matters. Because when we live with intention, even for a few minutes, we set a direction. We create momentum, and direction, not speed, determines the destination. It's easy to believe that success is the result of big moves, launching a business, acing the interview, publishing the book. But those moments are just the visible tips of something deeper. The real work, it's the quiet commitment to show up every day, even when no one's watching. It's 5 minutes of clarity, 5 minutes of gratitude, 5 minutes of planning, learning, or just breathing with purpose. That's how trust is built, with yourself first. That's how vision is sustained. People don't burn out because they're doing too much. They burn out because they lose sight of why they started. And 5 minutes a day can bring that why back into focus. So here's the challenge. Carve out that time, set it aside like it matters, because it does. Use it to ask yourself the real questions. Not what do I need to get done, but what kind of person do I want to be today? What future am I moving toward? Because your future isn't written in some distant moment. It's written in the quiet spaces, in the choice to pause, to reflect, to lead yourself before you try to lead others. 5 minutes isn't just a habit, it's a promise to yourself, to your potential, to your future. And it starts today. Every great achievement we admire, whether it's a thriving career, a strong relationship, or a life filled with purpose, can usually be traced back to small, consistent actions. It's a truth that often gets buried beneath flashy success stories and overnight wins. But the reality is this: our future isn't created in sweeping decisions or grand moments. It's shaped in small, quiet pockets of time. And remarkably, just 5 minutes a day can be enough to start laying the foundation for the life we want to build. We often underestimate the power of small beginnings. 5 minutes doesn't sound like much. In a world that celebrates hustle, that glorifies being constantly busy, 5 minutes might even seem trivial. But it's exactly that kind of thinking that causes people to overlook the most powerful tool they have, intentional time. In those few minutes, if used with purpose, you can set the trajectory of your day, and over time, your life. Think of it like a compass. If you're sailing and your course is off by just a degree or two, you may not notice the difference in the first mile. But over 100 miles, that small misdirection leads you to a completely different destination. The same applies to how we start our days. When we take 5 minutes each morning to center ourselves, to decide what kind of mindset we want to carry, what kind of energy we want to project, what kind of impact we want to have, we're setting our internal compass. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about starting with clarity. It might be 5 minutes of writing in a journal, not a novel. Just a line or two about what you're grateful for, what you hope to accomplish, or how you want to show up in the world. It might be 5 minutes of stillness, breathing deeply and letting your mind settle before the noise of the day begins. Or it might be 5 minutes spent reading something that challenges or inspires you. These aren't throwaway moments, and like any investment, their true value grows with time. The compound effect of these small actions is extraordinary. One day becomes a week becomes a month becomes a mindset. And suddenly, without needing to flip your whole life upside down, you find yourself living more deliberately. You start making decisions with more clarity. You handle challenges with more grace. You find that you're no longer just reacting to your life, you're designing it. We often look at successful people and focus on what they've accomplished. But rarely do we ask what quiet disciplines they've practiced when no one was watching. The truth is, those small, often unseen rituals are what give birth to visible results. And more often than not, they began with a few minutes a day. That's the doorway to transformation. Not the massive overhaul we convince ourselves we need, but the tiny, repeated action we can actually sustain. 5 minutes a day is not about efficiency, it's about intentionality. It's about proving to yourself that your goals, your mindset, and your peace matter enough to make space for them, even in the smallest way. And when you do that consistently, those 5 minutes stop being just a part of your day. They become the seed of the future you're creating. We live in a culture that equates success with speed, productivity, and doing more. We're conditioned to believe that if we're not grinding, we're falling behind. But the truth is, more effort doesn't always mean better outcomes. What really moves us forward is not how much we do, but how deliberately we do it. Intention, not intensity, is the real engine behind lasting change and meaningful growth. We've all had days where we checked off a dozen tasks but felt completely unfulfilled. Then there are days where we do just one thing with complete focus and purpose, and it leaves us feeling aligned, accomplished, and energized. That's the difference intention makes. It's not about volume, it's about clarity. When you move with intention, even small actions become powerful because they're grounded in awareness. They are guided by a sense of direction, not just a need to stay busy. Intensity can be seductive. It gives the illusion of progress. You can go full speed ahead, take on everything, burn the candle at both ends, and yet, if you're not clear on why you're doing it or where you're headed, you may end up nowhere meaningful. Intensity can produce impressive short-term results, but it's also unstable. It burns out. It's unsustainable without purpose behind it. Intention, on the other hand, is quiet. It doesn't always look impressive on the outside, but it's what allows you to show up consistently, to make decisions that align with your values, and to stay grounded even in the chaos. In a world obsessed with hustle, it takes courage to slow down and choose intention over intensity. It's not always easy. You might feel like you're falling behind when you pause to think, when you step back to reflect, when you resist the urge to jump into the next thing. But those are the moments when you gain clarity. They allow you to ask the deeper questions. What really matters right now? What's the impact of what I'm doing? Am I moving closer to the life I want to create or just running in place? Intentional action often looks like less, but leads to more. A 5-minute pause to define your goals for the day might save you hours of distraction. A moment of presence in a conversation can build a relationship that transforms your career. A short daily ritual of reflection can prevent you from drifting away from your purpose. These aren't dramatic moves, but they're powerful. They center you. They remind you that it's not about being everywhere or doing everything. It's about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. What's powerful about intention is that it multiplies the impact of every action you take. You don't need to overhaul your life in one day. You need to take small, deliberate steps in the direction that matters, and that requires presence. It requires asking before you act, what outcome am I really seeking? What's the most meaningful way to use this moment? When you lead with those questions, your actions gain weight. They stop being random. They start becoming building blocks for your future. We all have the same number of minutes in a day, but how we spend those minutes, how consciously we choose to show up in each of them, makes all the difference. Moving with intention turns even the smallest effort into progress with purpose. It's not about how fast you go. It's about whether you're going in the right direction. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause long enough to choose the next step on purpose. Self-trust isn't something we're born with, it's something we build. And one of the most powerful ways to build it is through consistent daily action. Not the kind of action that screams for attention, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that says, I'll show up for myself today, even if no one else sees it. When you dedicate just 5 minutes a day to an intentional practice, whether it's reflection, goal setting, journaling, or simply being still, you send a signal to yourself that you matter. And that signal, repeated over time, lays the foundation for real self-trust. It's easy to make big promises to ourselves. We say we'll get up earlier, start the new habit, or finally stick to the plan. But those promises are meaningless without follow-through. And follow-through is rarely built on motivation, it's built on rhythm. When you consistently show up, even in small ways, you start to believe in your own word. You begin to trust that when you say you'll do something, you'll do it. That's the kind of trust that doesn't just feel good, it changes how you move through the world. 5 minutes a day might not seem like enough to change your life, but it's more than enough to change your relationship with yourself. Because what matters isn't the length of time, it's the message behind the action. Every time you follow through on a daily practice, you reinforce the belief that you're capable, reliable, and worthy of the future you're trying to build. That kind of belief doesn't come from external validation. It comes from proving to yourself over and over again that you can be counted on, that you'll show up, that you're not waiting for the perfect time or ideal conditions to take yourself seriously. Self-trust also creates emotional stability. When life gets unpredictable, as it always does, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or off balance. But when you've built the habit of showing up for yourself consistently, you have something to anchor you. You can fall back on the rhythm you've created, the small practice you've protected. That grounding is what helps you navigate challenges without losing your center. It gives you the ability to respond rather than react. And it all starts with something as simple as 5 minutes a day. The beauty of building self-trust through daily practice is that it doesn't require perfection. You don't need to get everything right. You just need to keep coming back, even on the days when you feel tired or uninspired, especially on those days, because that's when the trust grows deepest. When you show yourself that you'll still keep your promise, even when it's hard, that's what builds resilience. That's what strengthens character. Over time, this kind of consistency reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and fails and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who doesn't rely on circumstances to act, someone who creates their own momentum. That shift is subtle, but it's powerful. It changes how you approach your goals, how you handle setbacks, and how you engage with the people around you. And perhaps most importantly, self-trust gives you permission to dream bigger. When you trust yourself, you don't second-guess every idea or delay every decision. You move forward with courage, knowing that you'll adapt, you'll learn, and you'll keep going, because you've already proven to yourself every single day that you can be relied on. And that knowledge, that quiet confidence, is what turns 5-minute actions into a lifelong foundation. Burnout is often misunderstood. Most people assume it comes from doing too much, from overcommitting, overworking, and overextending ourselves. But the real cause of burnout is far deeper. It's not simply the weight of everything we're doing. It's the emptiness of why we're doing it. People don't burn out because they're too busy. They burn out because they're disconnected from their purpose. They've lost sight of the reason behind their effort, the meaning behind their work, the passion behind their pursuits. And that disconnection over time drains more energy than any task ever could. When we go through the motions without understanding what drives us, every action becomes a burden. Days feel longer, motivation fades, and even the smallest challenges can feel overwhelming. That's because we're no longer fueled by a clear why. We're just trying to survive. But when we reconnect to purpose, something changes. Tasks that once felt draining become meaningful. Difficulties become challenges we're willing to face. Time starts to feel like an opportunity instead of a trap. And that reconnection doesn't require a retreat or a radical change. Sometimes it only takes 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes may seem too short to make a difference, but it's more than enough to remember why you started. It's enough to breathe, reflect, and ask yourself, what matters to me? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What kind of impact do I want to make, not just in the world, but in the way I show up today? These are not dramatic questions, but they're powerful ones. Because when we forget to ask them, we drift. And when we drift, we disconnect. And that disconnection is what opens the door to burnout. Burnout doesn't always show up as exhaustion. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's apathy. Sometimes it's a quiet sense of resentment toward the things you once loved. These are signs that something deeper is missing, not more energy, but more meaning. And the solution isn't to add more tasks to your list or push yourself harder. The solution is to pause, to take time, even just a little, to reconnect with the values that give your work and life meaning. Daily reconnection to purpose doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be a quick journal entry, a walk without distraction, a single question you ask yourself each morning. It can be 5 minutes spent reading something that inspires you or revisiting a goal that lights you up. What matters is the intention behind it. This small ritual can act like a compass. Even if your day is packed, even if your responsibilities are heavy, that 5-minute check-in reminds you what direction you're headed. It shifts your mindset from obligation to ownership. And that shift alone can be the difference between thriving and burning out. When you make a habit of reconnecting with your purpose, you begin to notice when things are out of alignment. You become more aware of what drains you unnecessarily and what energizes you in meaningful ways. You can course correct sooner. You can say no more clearly. And most importantly, you can say yes more fully to the things that matter, to the goals that inspire, to the life that feels like your own. Purpose is not something you find once and then forget. It's something you maintain. It needs attention, it needs reflection, and the more you nurture it, the more it nurtures you in return. When you make even a small space each day to remember what matters, you're not just avoiding burnout, you're fueling resilience. You're not escaping your work, you're returning to it with greater clarity and strength. All it takes is a moment to reconnect, a moment to remember your why. And that moment, taken daily, can carry you through far more than any schedule or strategy ever could. The future isn't something that suddenly arrives, it's something we create piece by piece through the choices we make in the present. While we often think of the future as distant, something shaped by tomorrow's plans, next year's goals, or long-term visions, the truth is it begins now. The decisions we make today, even the smallest ones, are the bricks that build the life we'll live later. And it's not about huge dramatic actions. It's about presence. It's about being awake to the moment you're in and recognizing that right now is where the future begins. Every day gives us countless opportunities to create the life we want. But we often miss them, not because we don't care, but because we're distracted. We're caught in the pace of daily life, moving from one thing to the next without pausing to ask if we're moving in a direction that aligns with who we want to become. It doesn't take hours of reflection to change that. Just 5 minutes a day spent with intention can shift everything. 5 minutes to ask, what am I choosing today? What story am I writing with my actions? Those questions, when asked regularly, help us wake up from autopilot. They remind us that each moment is a chance to make a decision that reflects our deeper values, that the way we speak, work, connect, and even think is not just a reaction to life, it's an act of creation. It's easy to assume that the big moments, career moves, life events, personal breakthroughs, are what define our future. But they're rare. Most of our life is made up of ordinary days, quiet mornings, and routine choices. That's where the real creation happens. You take 5 minutes to reflect or reset. You're not just organizing your day. You're reinforcing the identity you want to live into. If you use that time to be grateful, you're shaping a future grounded in appreciation. If you use that time to set intentions, you're shaping a future rooted in clarity. If you spend those moments reminding yourself of a long-term goal, you're giving your future self a gift, momentum, direction, and purpose. These aren't just feel-good exercises, they're decisions that accumulate. Over time, they shift your behavior, your mindset, and your results. We often underestimate the power of small decisions because we don't see their impact right away. But the future is a result of patterns, not isolated actions. Think about it like planting seeds. You don't see the growth in a day, but each seed matters. Each one holds the potential for something great. But only if it's planted, only if it's watered, and only if it's tended to over time. That's what 5 minutes a day does. It keeps you planting, keeps you watering, keeps you connected to the garden you're growing, even when the harvest seems far away. Time is one of the few resources we all share equally. What separates people isn't how much time they have, but how consciously they use it. 5 minutes of clear intention can outweigh hours of scattered effort. Because when you're present in your actions, when you act with purpose, you create alignment between who you are today and who you want to be tomorrow. That alignment builds confidence, it creates momentum, and most importantly, it shapes your reality. The future is not out there somewhere waiting to happen to you. It's being written right now in how you speak, in how you choose to begin your day, in how you respond when things go wrong, in how you show up, not once in a while, but consistently, with intention. You don't have to predict the future. You just have to participate in the present. Because that's where the future lives. Not later, not someday, but here, in the quiet moments that are asking for your attention.